Hey Jordan, how you doing?
Hey, Sina. Yeah, I'm good. Thanks. Yeah, looking forward to having a chat with you.
Yeah, really looking forward to having you on. Listen, talking to you for the next sort of 25 minutes or so. And thank you again for joining me. We're recording on a Friday evening, which is not the most popular time to record a podcast, but we're doing it. How's your
Yeah,
week been?
it's good. Yeah, I've got a gin and tonic in hand actually because it is Friday afternoon. So yeah, it's been a busy one actually. We're kind of getting into summer now, and kind of all that COVID, debacle is behind us. Hopefully.
Mm,
So yeah, busy with kind of summer trade and events.
When did you actually start Lixir Drinks?
So we've literally just had our fourth anniversary. I
Crazy.
think it was the 15th of May. Matt and I, my co-founders, sold our first bottle into Phoenix in Newcastle. So
Crazy.
that was kind of classic hand delivering it ourselves
Yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah,
into store. But yeah, it's probably one of the most exciting kind of listings I think we
yeah.
get. So.
So what is Lixir, just for people who don't know?
Yeah, sure. So Lixir Drinks is a tonic water and mixer brand. It's naturally flavored, low in calorie, low in sugar, and we're one of the few mixer brands on the market that is carbon neutral certified. And we also donate 1% of revenue to charity. So effectively, for every case of Lixir we sell, we provide 100 litres of clean drinking water.
Mm,
Um, and yeah, it's very much kind of appealing to a younger generation. So when you look at kind of the tonic water landscape, it is quite traditional, and we're trying to be a bit more contemporary
mm.
and urban. And as I say, yeah, just appeal to that next generation of drinker.
There's no actual alcohol in it. It's just a mixer.
Yeah, totally. Just a mixer. You can have it neat as well. Like drinking tonic as a soft drink isn't kind of the most popular thing, but some of our consumers do that, especially like the flavored variety.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's predominantly to be served with alcohol or kind of now we're seeing a lot of non-alcoholic spirits as well,
Mm.
which is paired with.
Why did you decide to start it in the first place? Because we'll probably get onto this a bit later, but
Mm.
the food and drink market is already especially crowded. But when you segment that down to mixers and I guess non-alcoholic mixers or whatever, like that's still a really crowded market.
Yeah, so we were quite young actually when we founded it, Matt and I. I think we were about 24 at the time. We'd been a couple years out of uni. We both went to Newcastle University together, and weirdly, we are actually really old childhood school friends. So Matt and I first met back in 1999, and we were like 5 or 6 years old. Um, but yeah, we were both graduates living up in Newcastle together, and both working in the spirits industry, just in like your classic graduate sales roles. So I was working for a company called Diageo, which you might know. They sell like Guinness,
Yeah,
Smirnoff.
they're the biggest company, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, like they are. Yeah,
for drinks.
globally. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then Matt was at William Grant and Sons, which are a family-owned company, but they own Hendrick's Gin and Disaronno and Sailor Jerry's, some really cool spirit brands. Um, so we both kind of got into like the drink space quite early on, and it was kind of over Christmas in 2016, so about 4 or 5 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago now, and I think we were either hosting like a gathering with a few friends, or we were at a gathering, I can't remember, but it was when like the flavored gin boom was like really taking off, and like you
Yeah,
were
yeah,
seeing
yeah.
like rhubarb and
I
blood
do remember
orange.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it kind of like gin obviously became really cool and popular, and then it kind of had that second wave when all the flavored varieties came out. Um, but we were kind of sat around this table, and there was like half a dozen bottles of different styles of gin on the table. And we thought actually that's quite a lot of value just sat there, and especially when you're just starting out in your careers, you don't necessarily want to be, spending too much, on alcohol, or have too much spend locked up in like a drinks cabinet at home. Um, and I guess that's where the light bulb moment for Lixia was, because we just thought it made so much more sense to have like good base spirit and then have flavored tonics that you can pair it with. Because at the time there's obviously kind of your two or three main brands that were out there, but in terms of flavor variety, they all just did like an Indian tonic, a slim line. Um,
Yeah, I haven't come across any flavored ones actually.
so they are. That's the thing. Like when we first had the idea, there wasn't really any on the market,
Mm.
and that was like the light bulb moment where like we were like, we could do this, and I think we'd Lixia wasn't our first idea. Like we'd always chatted about different business ideas in the past, but they were always a bit forced. And like Lixia was the first one where we thought actually there is a gap here.
Mm.
And when we looked into what was on the market in a bit more detail, they did sit at that very traditional end that appealed to a slightly younger audience. Whereas for us in our 20s, when you look at kind of all the different spirit and beer categories, there was
Yeah.
like a cool, like distinctive brand that would stand out in each of those categories. Whereas for tonics, there wasn't really anything that resonated with us, and we felt it was a bit of a boring category. So we felt there was definitely a gap for a brand that was a bit more youthful and kind of edgier and a bit more urban. And then also with kind of this idea of like flavor innovation as well, we thought we were onto something. So
Mm.
what we did was we had a few chats about it, and then we went away over Christmas. And then when we said to each other, when we come back in the new year, if we're still thinking about it, we'll pursue it and get to work.
Yeah.
So that's ended up what we did.
But what were the kind of like risks for starting it? Because like I guess when you're looking at a market like that, where I guess you're looking at like spirits, tonic pairings essentially, and it's like yeah, as you said, there isn't a standout tonic brand, but I mean, I guess maybe a reason for that, or like I guess like a common disagreement from people that would buy it is like maybe it's because like the actual spirit is the hero within the drink pairing, and the spirit the mixer isn't like actually like that valuable. So do you? I don't know. Did you get that sort of like comment from many people?
I think what helped with us was that a lot of people, like especially in drinks, know like Fever Tree, for instance, who have done. I really, rate Fever Tree. Like they've
Mm,
done a fantastic job of because they've started a lot earlier than kind of the everyday consumer actually thinks. But they had this, really good marketing slogan that was, three quarters of your drink is a mixer, mix
yeah,
with the
yeah.
best. So we felt that actually, and when we looked into kind of market data a bit more, um, the mixer and tonic space, it was becoming more premium, and
Mm,
it was increasing in value growth quicker than it was volume. Um,
that's
so
interesting.
people obviously were looking for more premium
Mm,
mixes, and they do, value its importance just as much as the spirit. Because
yeah.
if you drown your £40 bottle of gin in a really crap mixer, then you're kind of ruining it, aren't you? So
Yeah, I completely agree with you. But when it comes to like first starting the business Lixir, I guess you had that light bulb moment. You had this idea that you really want to do flavored premium tonics.
mm.
What was the next step, like practically?
Yeah, so I mean, we were fairly like green when it came to starting a brand. As I say, we were working in the spirits industry in sales roles, so we knew kind of market trends, and we had a good network, but we were really starting from scratch. But I think because we were actually quite so young, and we didn't really, I guess we had that sort of element of fearlessness to us a
Mm,
bit. We didn't really know what we were stepping into. And I think, to be honest, when we first came up with the idea, we thought it might just be a bit of a side hustle. Um, and we didn't really realize what kind of journey it would take us on. But one of the things we did early on, which I'd say is probably we've carried on doing it, and it's probably one of the best things we've done, is when we don't know stuff, just always finding really good people that can help. It doesn't matter kind of what area of business that's in. So we obviously first thing we did was actually just go on Google, which I think kind of every founder starting out probably does
Yeah.
at the beginning. And we found a guy who was a consultant that was specializing in startups, and he'd left his position. He was a CEO at a really well known water company, and although he hadn't done tonics specifically, he had a really good network on manufacturers to speak to, labelers, what you have to do to actually get ready for launching in trade, um, coming up with kind of a generalized business plan, branding agency. Kind of he had that whole network locked down. So we really, his name was Paul. We really utilized Paul for like the first 6 to 12 months, as we were kind of going from that idea phase to launching.
Mm.
um, so I mean, we obviously led it, but he was just kind of like a really good networker and a kind of door opener, I
Yeah.
guess, into
Yeah.
meeting the right people. Because I think we didn't realize going into it that the barriers to entry, sorry, are so high for
Yeah.
tonics and mixers. Like,
But like, what are those barriers to entry just for people to understand?
so usually when a customer goes to a supplier, so we would say we're the customer, for instance, looking to find a bottler. You think that you reach out to a bottler and they'd just be happy to speak to you, but they get inundated with people like us that just have an idea and they're looking for a new bottler. But bottlers just want to be producing products at scale. They don't really want to be wasting their time with people that have got ideas and they want to do a really small trial run, and then there's the risk it might not sell, and they've invested all that time and effort in change parts on their production line, and
Yeah.
they never get a subsequent order from them. So whereas I thought, we ring up a bottling provider, and they'd be all for it, they weren't.
Yeah.
So Paul actually, his just because he had that relationship with a lot of the manufacturers out there, I guess that kind of gave us a chance early on. So that's one thing. And then obviously, like the working capital, you can't just for soft drinks that are like carbonated, because it's not something you can necessarily just make at home. You need that kind of manufacturing facility. The minimum order quantities tend to be quite substantial.
Yeah, I've heard. They're crazy. They're
Um,
like maybe 10,000 bottles, like minimum. It's crazy.
Yeah, so I think that's roughly, yeah, that's something like what our first
Yeah.
run was. And also they require a payment up front, and then you've got to wait for the production run, and then you've got to sell it to a customer who probably wants 30 to 90 days payment terms. So you've got kind of like a minimum of like a 4 month cash flow gap where you've paid for something and you're not getting paid. So definitely, it's one of the reasons why we actually decided to do a small crowdfund um, just after we launched, just before we launched, to help fund that first production run.
That's really interesting. So what? So so you went on one of these crowdfunding platforms and you asked for money with like a good video, I'm guessing, and you I guess told them that that money will be used for that supply run. And I guess how did you sell that crowdfunding?
Yeah, so one of the things I should mention actually, kind of in this period of going from the idea to launch, is a few months into doing a bit of research on Lixir, we realized there just wasn't enough hours in the day. So Matt and I kind of made the decision to quit our sales roles, and we took up bartending. So we were doing that like 35, 40 hours a week, kind of evenings and weekends. But then that gave us the daytime in the week to focus on Lixir. Um, so when we come round to the crowdfunding, we were actually this kind of quite organic, but quite nice kind of startup story emerged, that we were kind of two bartenders from the northeast, looking to launch a drinks brand. Um, so yeah, we decided to do this crowdfund, and at the time we only had visuals of what the bottles would look like and what the flavors were. but we really played on that kind of
So
bartender
no video,
narrative.
or was it just a video
We
of
so
yourselves?
yeah, we got a company in a small production company in Newcastle to do a video of us actually in the bar we worked in.
Oh, crazy.
So we were just like, trying to be really excited on camera, just you know, chatting to people about kind of the idea, what flavors we wanted to launch, the fact we, were working in the drinks industry and then took up bartending, and that we were just, trying to mix up the tonic water category a little bit. And we didn't really know what the response to the page was going to be when we put it up. But it was a 30-day campaign, and you could basically, people were pledging to buy different packages of Lixir.
Mm.
So it was an all or nothing campaign. So if you don't meet your target, you don't actually get any of the
What
funds. And
was the target that you put, and what was the target in your mind? Because like sometimes they're different, right? Like the target that you actually
yeah,
want versus the target that you set on the website.
yeah. So the target was something like 14 or 14,500, and that was just to see us through the first production run, basically.
Okay, crazy.
Up until that point, Matt and I just kind of had put kind of any personal savings we had into it.
Mm.
But we needed that first crowd fund to be a success to carry out the first production run.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, that was the target. We overfunded by, it was something like 16,500 in the end.
You overfunded by
Um,
16,500.
no, the final number was sixteen and
Oh,
a
right.
half
Okay, cool.
thousand. So we overfunded by like two
2,000
k,
something.
but it turned out we thought it was just going to be kind of a way to get some funding in, but actually we got loads of local PR from it, which was great. And also we
Or
had
organic PR.
yeah, literally, like
Wow.
we didn't reach out to anyone. I think it was the Chronicle, which is a local paper in Newcastle, decided to do a full piece on us. The university at Newcastle, where we're originally from, they wanted to, get involved and put something on their website. We even had some kind of independent pubs and bars in Newcastle that got in touch saying, "Look, once you've done it, I'll stock you," which was really good. And then we had, in the end, I think it was like 260 pledges,
Wow.
which are effectively like brand ambassadors, and they were dotted about all over the country.
Mm.
So anyone kind of starting out that kind of doesn't really want to give away equity at the start, but they just need a bit of working capital to, get the ball rolling. Something like a crowdfunder or a
Yeah.
Kickstarter is a really good
And
way
you,
to
and
do
you
it.
generated like organic leads from those pubs and like that, and also the PR. Like that was, yeah. Was that, by the way, Jordan, actually, let me ask you this. Was there any key success factors when it comes to this crowdfunding, I guess, strategy? Or did you just make the video, make the page and just leave it and just do it organically? Like what was the how did it get to that stage where you were getting organic leads coming in, you got the PR? Like what was the strategy there?
So I think, I don't know if it's changed because it was quite a while ago when we did it, but you don't actually get as many. There are a few organic leads, but there's not as many as you first think. So we really did have to put the work in and kind of network over that time to reach the funding. So I remember when we were working bar shifts, anyone that was coming in that, we could just start a conversation with, we were chatting to them about the crowdfunder. And you might then log on to the app in the evening and see that person's pledged, £40 or something, just because they quite like the idea. So we did really have to kind of, I guess, network and get people to visit the site, because it is, at any one time there are so many pages on like a crowdfunder,
Yeah.
that you do need, I guess, that traffic to start driving some momentum. We obviously like really focused on friends and family, so when the page went live, we'd already told a handful of people about it, and we got them to pledge the minute the page went live,
Mm.
and that kind of shot us up to kind of page one on crowdfunder,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because it was getting that traffic. And I'd say like having a good, concise video as well would probably be the last thing. Like you don't want 1,000 words on a page. You just need a few bullet points and just a video, because people
Mm.
people want to watch that.
That's incredible. And then so you raised that money, it went straight to the supply run. You made your first batch. You already had a few customers from the crowdfunding.
Mm.
Um, what was the next stage after that?
So I think we sold the initial run in something like 2 to 3 months. So we sold it quicker than we first thought, and we were sort of bartending full time during this period. And I guess in terms of like, although we'd had a couple of years under our belt in drinks, we were so this was like the first business we'd really got off the ground,
Yeah.
and I guess we were sort of, figuring things out for the first time. And in our heads, looking back now, I think we thought that like you produce this stock, you sell it, the profit you make from that, you
You
use that
reinvest it.
profit,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
reinvest it, and you go again. But it's such a competitive market, and there's so many associated costs with it that we just knew, that's just not going to be feasible.
Mm,
Um, and there was, I guess, that sort of tipping point when we were kind of coming, to the end of the initial first batch, after like selling out, where we thought we kind of need to actually get some proper investment into the business. So at that point, we could both just take a basic salary and go full time with it, and then give us like a 12-month runway, just to cover cash flow. And so, we didn't go crazy in our first year. In terms of like marketing or anything like that. But, you know, to compete and just to get off the ground, there are quite a few associated costs.
mm.
And we were on such a shoestring budget at the start that we knew we needed to go out and get investment. So um, we were quite fortunate. So our first investors that are still they're our lead investors today, a father and son duo. Um, I actually kind of knew of from my school network, and I told the son about the idea kind of a year and a half prior to them investing. So they'd always kind of had an interest in the brand and what we were doing. So when we went to them with our first business plan and pitch deck, um, they'd kind of had that kind of year and a half of kind of seeing, hearing from me, what we were up to, and then obviously seeing the crowd fund do well.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it was quite. They were just sort of really excited to get on board by that point. So it was good in a way that we didn't have to. A lot of people, I think, they realize they need money, but they don't know where to
Mm.
find an investor. I think we were quite fortunate, really, that we had someone in mind from the
Yeah.
off.
Jordan, let me ask you a question because you had that first supply run. I guess the demand was pretty good. So you obviously got the brand right, the flavor profiles correct, and all that other stuff. But I'm really keen to ask this question because I know loads of people listening might be thinking of launching a drinks brand or indeed like a food brand because it's so competitive and the brands that you're competing with like Diageo, like they're huge brands with like huge, portfolios as well as like massive budgets behind them. Do you need to raise money, investment to be able to compete with these guys?
That's a really good question because there's some success stories where you know the the brand has just gone from 0 to 100 in the blink of an eye,
Mm,
and they haven't necessarily needed to. I'd say for when you're doing something like us, where tonic waters have been around for years, we're not really inventing the wheel, but we're just trying to do something different or a bit better than our competition. But what we soon realised in kind of our space is that it is a bit of a pay to play industry. So there's not actually many competitors in mixers. There's kind of maybe a dozen of us,
mm.
but the majority of them are massive
Yeah, I was
corporations.
gonna say, like, because a lot of people think, oh, there's not that many competitors, but if you look deeper, if those like small batch of competitors are controlled by huge companies, then that's it's probably worse, if anything, than like loads of other small companies.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So for us, I'd say raising has been really important. If we hadn't fundraised, we wouldn't be in the position we were today. And I think people, when they start out, including when we did, we were really skeptical about it because we thought, oh, we're going to dilute our ownership and our
Yeah.
shareholding. But it's at the end of the day, it's better to have a small percentage of something that's worth a lot
Mm.
than a large percentage of something. something that isn't. And I think as well, like we didn't realize, again, because I think it's the first time we were doing it, how much capital, we'd need to raise. So there's some startup drinks brands now that, you see them come out of nowhere, but then you find out they've raised 2.5 million or something crazy, and they've assembled a team of 15, and
Yeah.
they're gonna hemorrhage massive losses for the first year or so, but they are really just fueling
Just to
growth.
give context to people, because I don't know this market well at all, but it's just like, just to give context, what are those hidden costs that I guess you didn't really think about before when launching? Because you just
So
mentioned them there.
yeah, it's not. I guess maybe hidden costs are the wrong
I guess costs that
word,
you didn't
but
really account for when you first went into it. That's probably a better way to
yeah.
ask it.
So maybe it's not cost, but it's definitely cash flow. So what I said earlier on, there's kind of that 4 month gap from when you might have to pay for a production run to when you're getting paid. That it's kind of, cash. I think cash flow is what kills a lot of, startup food and drink businesses.
Mm.
Um, Certainly in our space, when you realize how competitive it is and you need to, factor in a listing fee or a marketing spend to every, pitch you're tendering for. Um, Obviously, we're as we've grown, we're sort of a team of 8 now, but obviously there's staffing costs. Um, and just it depends how. I think we've always had quite a lean marketing budget, and we've tried to make a lot of noise, but very cost effectively. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I guess because we're not marketeers or branding experts, you know, all that kind of marketing spend as well soon stacks up.
Mm. Jordan, we're gonna have to wrap up there. It was so great to have you on the podcast. I always love having food and drink brands on the podcast. It brings such a different angle because it's an industry that I have never been in before. So it's very interesting to hear your story. What's I guess coming up for Lixir, and how can people stay in touch with you?
Yeah, so we've got a very busy summer planned because of COVID. The last 2 years, we hadn't done any uh, in real life events. We'd been very much focusing our attention to kind of online and that digital space. But we've got a very busy events calendar this summer and autumn. Um, we're launching a new range. I can't say what it is, but it's coming out next month. So I think just after
Just
this
after
will
this
be airing.
recording.
Yeah, so definitely either our website, lixirdrinks.co.uk, or kind of all our social media handles are at Lixir Drinks UK. It will all be getting updated on there. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Jordan, for coming on the podcast again, and I'll catch you very soon. Thanks so much.
Brilliant. Thanks for having me. Cheers.